Hi, and welcome to our webinar. On behalf of Property Forum, let me welcome all of our participants today's webinar. I'm Csanádgyőr, founder and CEO of Property Forum, an event and media and business intelligence hub for the Central and Eastern European property industry. We are active in all of the countries in Central and Eastern Europe. And today's webinar is about rebuilding and reconstructing Ukraine, sort of thinking together of the future of Ukraine from a construction and real estate perspective, of course, as the war in Ukraine still goes on, but the Ukrainian government has already started to work on the future reconstruction and rebuilding of Ukraine, sort of putting together a regulatory and legislative framework in which foreign capital and foreign players, developers, construction companies, and so on, banks can also join and invest, and of course to contribute to the reconstruction of Ukraine. So together with some of our partners from Ukraine, we thought that it would make sense also for us to sort of start thinking together about how to rebuild, how to rethink Ukraine for the future. Basically, in today's webinar, we will have a short overview, a presentation about what's going on in Ukraine in terms of the construction industry and the real estate industry. Of course, we will also cover about how much damage has already happened due to the terror of the war that Russia started now more than a year ago, actually. And then this presentation will be carried out by Sergii Stoliarchuk, who is the CEO and founder of Maxify and a long-term friend and partner of ours, and who is also the founder of the Polish-Ukrainian real estate hub. And after Sergii's presentation, we will have a panel discussion including a number of speakers with very different and diverse background, developers, investors, bankers, lawyers as well. So I think we will have a very complex overview of what to expect in Ukraine in terms of rebuilding, reinvesting there once the war is over. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Sergii Stoliarchuk, who is already here with us. I'd like to ask him to join us. Hi, Sergii. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you very much for introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. So I'll just give you the floor, Sergii, and you can put your slides on and. Yeah, I'll be here, of course, and for to the audience, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A and chat down in the menu. You can see that, so please feel free to just drop a line or ask questions. We will most likely get back to these questions first after the presentation of Sergii, and of course during and after the panel discussion as well.
Okay, so prior to go to the presentation, so thanks again for the introduction and just a couple of words about our initiative together with Property Forum. As the topic is very sensitive, it's still tragedy what is going on in the country, and at the same time, as a representative of international property-related business, I'm receiving personally every week some questions, advisory questions, or just direct inquiries about making business with Ukraine or in Ukraine. So the idea is, at the same time, I see how my colleagues and how my friends actually doing normal things in Ukraine to making new projects, to transform actually the industry and their organization, some of them to survive, some of them really to develop. And the idea is just to put together to bring more awareness to both, actually, to Ukrainian business and to Western side, to have like common sense about what's going on and to put the light and to connect the dots and help to each other, to Western part, to understand better Ukraine and these opportunities and to present decent partners also. And for Ukrainian one to rise up standards to be clearly understandable for Western investors, to help with synergy finding. So my today presentation is kind of warming up before the main part, which is a panel discussion with those companies and industries which Janet mentioned, and to figure out what actually is the size of the issue already declared. So without further introduction, I propose to see the slide with the data about damages and also needs presented in the mid of 2022 by World Bank. And you see on the slide that the housing, the total needs as of June 2022, it was almost $350 billion US. And the dominating part of it is related to housing, which is almost 70 billion, and transport 74 billion, and also the land. So on the next slide, you can see the territory, which in orange color, it's the most like damaged one, where the damage is over the 10 billion US. So it's mainly the eastern part, but also Kiev and Kiev region, and also southern part with Kherson, Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv, and also Chernigiv and Sumska Oblast on the north. However, then we have another assessment done by UK combined with Ukrainian government and Kiev School of Economics. And the size of damages in the end of 2022 was already 40% higher. It was almost 140 billion of dollars. And again, housing is number one in the list, with the next point in infrastructure and assets of industrial assets. And the map would look like a bit differently, because in the end of the last year, it was already biggest part of territory impacted seriously by the war. On the next slide, I would like here to show you also the situation with internal displaced people. And we see here the dark colors is also more impacted by that. It's western part of Ukraine, because mostly the war is going on the east, so people displaced from the east, and it's in Ukraine internally, it's over 5 million of people. So they are mostly went to the western part of Ukraine. And what I would like to show you by this slide and by this information, that actually if to take a look on the geographically on the territory of what should be rebuilt within the war or after it, it's not only eastern part, which I frequently hear from Western investors and companies with whom we discussed this topic, but also the whole Ukraine, because Western one is not ready infrastructure-wise to these IDPs. And also it's not about Ukraine only, but also the cross-border information. And you can see on the left part of the slide, it's number of people that cross border from Ukraine and to Ukraine back. So despite the big more than 50% of people return back, still it's quite huge amount and quite a huge impact from citizen point of view, from population demographic point of view, to the whole Europe. And the biggest contributors here is Poland, as you can see on the right part of the chart. And the latest data about how many Ukrainian refugees currently are outside of Ukraine per country. So Poland has still 1.5 million people, and Germany in this the second row is over 1 million people. So coming to the next block of the presentation, it's already about financial part. And what's actually turned completely is that now we can see and we can hear that just a huge amount of investments and support coming to Ukraine. And on the chart you can see by country or institutions who exactly and which amount consider it in terms of financial, humanitarian, and military contribution. And of course, United States is the biggest one, but also EU and United Kingdom altogether in 2022, it was over 120 billion euros of financial, humanitarian, and military aid provided to Ukraine. And yeah, it goes without saying that it's not only support and financial support and military, but also a kind of what I can, maybe it's my just personal view, but it is my personal view that these investments would require also a return of it. And we can see from business and governments behavior, especially from United States, it's visible that these actions are already in place. And I can show it to you on a couple of next slides. And in July 2022, Ukrainian government in conference in Lugano presented the recovery plan. So it was the first version. You can see the split of different parts and elements of this plan delivered. Altogether in 10 years, Ukrainian government presented over $750 billion recovery plan. And definitely the leading position here is here number 10 with up to 250 billion investments. It's housing and modernization of regions. Number 2 is logistics. And then we can see also like energy, especially renewable energy, and also microfinancial stability and different value-adding sectors of economy. So just coming to the latest news and what is going on in Q1 2023, at least on marketing and publicity side of this story, we see the biggest investment funds like BlackRock, like JP Morgan, visiting and making quite a series of meetings with Ukrainian Prime Minister and with Ukrainian government about coordination of Ukrainian investments, about creation a fund for private investor to invest into rebuilding of Ukraine. This is initiative of JP Morgan, and different declaration about amount. It confirmed actually the plan that I just showed you on the previous slide. So for instance, Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, confirmed that, just stated that 750 billion, it's just amount if the war end up just right now, in this moment. On top of that, we have also news not only about declaration, but also like real actions, which you can also see part of it on this slide. It's from EBRD, and today we're going to have also a bit deeper discussion about what exactly is going on from banking side and EBRD actions, but they promised to deliver 3 billion investments in 2022-2023, which more than half of it already is done. And also the last but not least about news, more and more we can hear and see some statements about guarantees to ensure investments in Ukraine from military risks, and also especially from equipment purchase point of view. which makes it already loud that the expectation is to invest in Ukraine not when the war is over. Of course, the biggest part still will be invested after that, but nobody knows actually when it happens. So to create tools, to create conditions and environment when the investment now would be safe and insured by governments. And we hear here declaration of JP Morgan. We see already declaration from German government. We see the presentation of Price Waterhouse Cooper, and this brings me actually to the end of the presentation in this perspective from the Ukrainian news and damages, and go to more classical one to put a bit of light on property markets. And we will just briefly, one slide per each market, will go through office, industrial, and residential markets review. So in terms of office stock, you can see that what actually in Kiev here, in this part of the slide where we have 11% of vacancy rate in Kiev before the war. So with population around 3 million of people and quite high ratio of white-collar employees, the office market in Kiev is just quite significantly undersupplied compared with main CEE capitals you can see on the slide. And even current war times, it's notable in Kiev that there are some relocations, there are some non-government organization and governmental organization that are now renting the offices, and it's quite an obvious fact that commercial part in Kiev especially will be still quite a hot one when the time will be more safe. On the next slide, you can see industrial stock, and mainly here we have the data about warehousing, and here we can see even more interesting parameters and KPIs that the vacancy here in Ukraine before the war was on the level of between 1% and 2%. So it made it actually the targeted market for biggest part of investors who were actually on the market. And together with the fact that almost between 25 and 30% of warehouses stock was damaged in the beginning of the war. So it's become quite a reasonable grounding of what we will discuss today, quite a big wave of industrial parks and industrial stock development and plans that currently has place in the country. And a couple of words about residential market. It's data of 2022, it's quite dynamic one, but that just to give you a feeling about what's going on in the market. And that's the figures now on the screen. It shows what share of residential projects renewed its construction in the period of the full-scale war. So you can see the left part of the map, western part of Ukraine, that there is, let's say, average 90% or even sometimes higher where the construction was renewed. Even central part in Kiev and Zhytomyrska Oblast, it's also renewed quite significantly. This is actually just confirming another thing that we have in registration, quite a big amount of projects which we cannot notice that construction is started, but Ukrainian developers, they are making their internal preparation to these rebuilding processes and registering new projects and new constructions. Moreover, we have more than 70 new projects launched construction in the wartime. And the biggest part here is, again, the western part. I think it's quite logically flying from the fact of IDPs. Biggest part is in Ukraine, especially in Lviv and Lviv region. However, still we have quite a big share of it in Kiev, in central part, where it's kind of entrepreneurship risk that people are taking and companies and businesses are taking just to have new projects and propose something to the market. And this actually brings me to the last slide of my presentation. On this moment, I'm stopping to broadcast it, and
thank you, Sergii, for the overview. Actually, what has shocked me the most, and to be honest, I've seen some version of these slides earlier at one of our physical events in Warsaw last year. Is that the percentage of residential constructions resumed by region? I love that slide of yours. Isn't it shocking even for you to see that so many of the ongoing projects are actually being carried out despite of the war going on the Eastern Front?
Well, I think there are two sides of this topic. On one hand, it's kind of entrepreneur's bravery to renew and to build and to invest. And in the same moment, it's also kind of survival mode for residential companies in Ukraine, because even Western part, when it's the biggest share of projects renewed, the sales is more or less on the level of 40% of the pre-war revenue and pre-war volumes. And assuming that there is actually no finance accessibility from internal in Ukraine, from bank perspective, so mostly 99% of projects they are financing by business. So they are starting with some kind of startup costs and then financing from sales, or financing in very rare cases when the developer has and construction company just has 100% of required financing in the pocket. So basically what they are doing right now, this residential companies, so they try to make as more attractive proposals as possible to generate some cash flow, and with this cash flow to prepare some new projects, some new I know one project in Dnipro, for example, that now it's on the paper, and it's now the question to owners to start its sales and construction or wait a little bit, but it is the biggest residential project in the area, and it's there are no security in that. Yeah, so there's only, like, you know, your owner risks, your owner decision. And I know that they are very close to start the sales and construction part in April still. So yeah, it's impressive. It's not easy, definitely, but it's like situation look like.
But it's quite asymmetric as well. On the other hand, I mean, if you take a look at that map, and also the other charts that you've shown, is that you can clearly see that the demand in Lviv is enormous compared to other cities and other regions of the country. Do you expect this trend to continue even after the war is over?
Yeah, I think it would be like that. It would be like that from several reasons. First of all, not everybody will return from western part again to south, north, and eastern part. Secondly, it's quite a big business increased activity on western part of Ukraine, and I'm quite sure that industrial part, industrial real estate, industrial real estate will be developing quite significantly, first in western part of Ukraine, and then we'll come back to Ukraine, assuming especially in pre-war time, it was like flipped. It was flipped because Kiev generates about 25% of Ukrainian GDP, and whole the logistics part was concentrated in Kiev region surrounding Kiev. And it was actually quite difficult part to find decent A or B class logistics complex or just simply warehouse in western part of Ukraine. And now I see the tendency is opposite, that more and more industrial parks and logistics centers to be built up in Lviv Oblast or in Zakarpatska Oblast. Maybe we'll hear today about some of them. And yes, the trend will definitely continue, in my opinion.
Right. Just one question / remark from my side before we start with the panel, and maybe you will touch on this topic in the panel in detail later on. Is there a fear in your view that many of the, let's say, foreign investors, developers, all sorts of players will be more likely to prefer to go into the western part of Ukraine, because that seems like a safer and business-wise a more sound place to invest, rather than to go to the eastern part, where actual investment is much more needed, probably.
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much for that. In my opinion, yes, but however, I had a couple of conversations just last couple of weeks, and I was very much surprised by the answer of that investor that they wouldn't like to go actually into more safe area, but they would like to go more either in central part or even in central eastern part. And this is not just single one. Yeah, so we are talking about one company from US and another from Scandinavian association. So it's for me, unexpectedly, I would probably from business perspective treat it in a bit different way and go first into Western Ukraine and then go in Central and East. However, it's depends on the strategy and depends actually on values behind. So whenever there is a value and idea to recover actually what is damaged, then it might be a specific idea to go exactly in Dnipro, for instance, or some close to Dnipro area.
Right. I guess that will be also the task of the government itself, and also the various international organizations which will be engaged in the rebuilding process to ensure that not only the western part will receive the necessary investment and attention in general. So without further ado, I'd like to ask my colleagues to invite our panelists into this discussion, and also meanwhile I'd like to encourage all of our viewers to come up with any questions they would like to be answered during the panel. There's this Q&A and chat feature down. And so I can see that our panelists are arriving into this discussion. So I will leave the floor to Sergii. He will be the moderator of the discussion, and he has the pleasure of introducing our speakers from all sorts of locations and from all sorts of backgrounds. So Sergii, please, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will run very short introduction actually, because we had this already in our distribution list about, but what I'm happy to introduce actually is that we have professional with full range of expertise and background, from financial sector represented by Asher and EBRD, with residential, Roland from Green Towers and Igor from Spilnota, and commercial real estate, Roman from Smart Urban Solutions, and industrial real estate also, Sergii Fedorik with us today. And we have legal and advisory from Olena by Taylor Vessels, and also Daniel from immo lab. And also together we are doing this, what Chena just mentioned in the beginning, that together we are doing also Polish-Ukrainian real estate hub. And today the topic which I would like to cover, actually, the presentation was kind of warm up, and I'm really interested to your opinions to start from investment part, investment climate, because like we are experiencing now very uncertain time globally. Inflation rally, there is not really optimistic declaration for 2023 globally, and predominantly caused by sanction towards Russia by biggest economies. And at the same time, it's just shown is still huge like support and marketing support and idea to invest in Ukraine. So please share your opinion. How do you think how your market's actually changing right now in terms of financing real estate market? And is really Ukraine becoming the investment destination for the West now, or in some predictable future? Daniel, over to you first. Please share with your experience from Poland, how the market in Poland changed, and what is the perception of Polish investors to Ukraine?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Sergei, thank you for the intro. So speaking about that, we should a little bit maybe make a little bit travel to the past. And when the over has started, the Polish market, all of them actually, residential, commercial, all of them that have been really getting hotter and hotter. We had the last 3 years really the most amazing in the residential market ever, with a fantastic sale of the land, sales of apartments, the starting of the new projects, and so on. And then for the obvious reason, when the war started, we had like everything on hold for like 2 months. But then everything came back, maybe not to normality, because the Polish people and also a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, as you, Sergei, know, we have been very involved in the help for Ukrainian civilians also. And that was really visible across the companies, that some decisions had been on hold, people had been involved somewhere else. But after 3-4 months, I've seen that some, let's say, part of the market was coming back to the same situation from before war, but only the part of it. The fact is that other things which has happened, like inflation, which came to life, which are still dealing on, because of this reason, also financing has been like really double or triple in some cases for the real estate investors. And then at the same time, several problems for end user, for buyers of apartments became to life also, the restrictions, the very high cost of the loan, and so on. And now, in the last 3-4 months, what we see, a part of our local problems, which we are having, of course, as every single market, some government programs and some new investment, new money, equity entering to Poland. We are having a really huge demand now for the Polish market for the new product. We have like too much money, too much equity simply on the Polish market. The money is actually becoming more expensive, which is obvious. But still, we are speaking about 4 to 6% of the financing cost, but comparing to 0.5 up to 1.5, not so long time ago. We have to remember, when still comparing to the financing in Polish zlotys, which is around 10 to 15% now, makes a difference anyway. I believe. So the another difference which we see is a lot of, even in the hub, Sergei, as you know, in the Polish-Ukrainian real estate hub, which was started like a few weeks ago, we have really many requests from Ukraine, actually, to mention about that, about finding partners in Poland for different type of investments. And for example, there is two investors who are willing to build residential tower in Warsaw. Another one looks for the project, which is the mixed development in Warsaw. Another, they think about build something like apartments for rent, Warsaw, Krakow, Gdańsk, 3 different cities location. And one of the member of this team, Sergii, for sure, is aware that there are also other ideas like on the commercial market. For example, looking for the JV partners. What is interesting on it, big part of those investors are telling us that they would be happy to cooperate with the same partnership when the war will be finished, and then they can move to Ukraine with the similar type of business or even different one. So for example, if somebody is doing residential in Poland with the Polish local partner, they're also happy if the Polish partner is able to do it. They're also happy to make it office, for example, or warehousing in Ukraine later. And of course, several issues, questions, who is putting on deploying his own know-how, how much money, which part of equity is coming from where, legal issues, and so on. And definitely several questions are raising about the current, I would say, clearance of doing business in Ukraine, which we believe, based on the discussions with Ukrainian business and the officials, that this is far different than we know that it was like 3-4 years ago. It's more transparent, I would say, and I believe after war will be really transparent, which really this issue, we should say this openly, it came from many also Polish investors who are already having land there. They did some things in Ukraine before war. But now the situation is changing, even based on our new knowledge, how much money, how many investors from US, UK, Germany, and several from Poland are planning to invest very soon in Ukraine. But there are concerns, of course, when the war will be over and so on.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I will over to Asher, to you. Please share your view on the perspective of Ukraine, because you already invested as EBRD quite a significant amount just right now. It's not about declaration, but about real activities. What do you think about this point?
Of course. Hello, everybody. EBRD used to be a very significant investor in Ukraine before the invasion. And we have a very strong commitment to keep our position as a leading investor in the country going forward. As a background, yes, to my institution participation in the real estate sector in Ukraine, our president visited the country end of last year. She met President Zelensky. Our public commitment is to invest $3 billion into the Ukrainian economy in the next 2 years. Last year, we already invested north of $1 billion. So our commitment to the country is very strong, and specifically myself as a property banker, I could say that we believe there is a lot of potential in the Ukraine real estate market. There was a very strong potential before Russia's invasion, specifically in the field of industrial real estate. The market was really undersupplied. The occupational demand was very strong. There was a very good potential in the office sector in Kiev because of the IT and outsourcing sectors, and we invested in those directions. There was also very good potential in regional retail that was undersupplied. We did deal in all of those subsectors. Post-invasion, it became harder to invest in yielding real estate because of the uncertainty of the occupational market and also the issues around insurability. But regardless, as EBRD, we managed to deploy money in the sector. We completed several deals since the invasion, mostly in Western Ukraine. And we plan to invest further in the near future, specifically because we have also donor funding that we can use to blend into our commercial financing, and by that potentially reduce the risk for us as an institution and still deploy money on the ground.
Great, thank you very much. Let's continue and proceed with the Western part, Roland. Over to you. Then you are acting on German and UK market quite actively. At the same time, giving quite a big humanitarian support to Ukraine, but now rather about investment part. How's the climate in your perspective in your region changed? And related to Ukraine, what do you think? Is it the point of investment now, of investment flow, or in some future?
Yeah, I mean, in the preparation calls, I wasn't sure whether I was the show spoiler here. But giving this a second thought, it might really have two sides, as I'm not sure whether Ukraine is an opportunity. It could be an opportunity on the backdrop of the situation we have in the Eurozone and also in the UK, in both currency zones. I'm carefully excluding Poland here. The property, the leveraged financed property developed market in the UK and in Germany is and in the Eurozone, that includes the rest of Europe, is dead in the water. The lending went down by 50%, and if you are not really equity rich, there is financing for projects is not available. The major housing companies, the prominent ones, they stopped their new projects altogether completely for 2023. Cutting all the ifs and buts and an analysis a bit short, there might be a recovery in 2025. In any case, in continental Europe or in Eurozone Europe, I must say, and in the UK, you find a lot of bored property developers because they don't know what to do. With regards to Ukraine, it's of course the question, what is the risk return profile there? You know, I mean, we have seen a sharp rise in interest rates. And I researched the Poland, Narodny Bank Polski. In Poland, they've been used to high interest rates. They've always been high here and there. But in Europe, it was a complete car crash. And to a lesser extent, I would be careful a bit there, but to a lesser extent also in America. And we feel the ripples in the banking system and so on and so forth. The question is really, what is the risk return profile? Because capital in Ukraine, capital for leveraged residential will not flow into the Eurozone, will not flow into the UK. So leave this maybe more as a question. What are the yields there? How would you position yourself to be attractive for Eurozone investors or UK investors? I mean, obviously the money is still there.
Thank you. Quite an insightful, interesting question. Now let's move then to Ukrainian side. I would start then from Olena. Olena, can you share from your like a business perspective and also legal perspective, how actually now climate in Ukraine is going to be changed? Already some changes that are ongoing, and how do you perceive actually, to which extent it's enough what's going on to be really attractive for Western investors to come to Ukraine?
Well, we started as a country and Ukrainian government already a state support initiative shortly before the invasion, before the full-scale invasion. And this year it has developed as well to the further level. What we are discussing the value of the projects, which should exceed 20 million euros, and it should be implemented within 5 years within the term. It should provide irreversible investment in some specific areas, And as a state support can be given on non-monetary basis up to 30%. And in terms of real estate, it could be interesting also with high-level support, governmental support on land allocation, on utilization, on the transport activities, on some classic instruments like tax and customs initiatives. And what we need to do from today's perspective, we can consider it as to get an information first before coming in with a big project. And we have also, we have lower costs at the beginning for the projects, for implementation, to get to know about the legal perspectives, because this this state support program can be applicable for both for local and for foreign-based investors. And actually the future is happening already now, and we can take an opportunity to consider the investment, because as we discussed, we don't know when the war will be over, but we would like to be present there. We as a business, we as representatives of the clients, of the construction businesses and so on, from the beginning, because we need to consider it in a complex way, where we're talking about the construction projects, about the financing, about the insurances, about the guarantees, and also the legal security. And what is interesting from my legal perspective in this field would be that Ukrainian government is ready to sign this kind of special investment agreement under not under Ukrainian law, but under any law of that will be chosen between the investor and between Ukrainian government. It takes a preparation works, it takes a discussion, but it shows that the country is ready to stay for its words, for the guarantees provided to the investors, not only under Ukrainian law, or not only in its own country, but to provide further guarantees for investors. And I think that is something quite unique that was not possible within the last 30 years of the independence, for example. And it's still, it's worth trying for it. And what we also see from our clients or from other businesses operating in Ukraine, we have some ongoing projects. And once the guarantees are provided for the financing, the projects are going on. And also in terms of reconstruction, we would need also construction materials, also the import of the construction machinery, how you can get it into the country, how you can get it from one district to another one, from one region to another one. And we also need to see Ukraine needs a support with reconstruction, and we need to prioritize whether it would be on short term, on long term, on medium term. And in this, from this perspective, you will have different times, different investment initiatives, or also different projects to be supported. I believe in this webinar, it will be discussed more than enough by the professionals operating in this field.
Thank you very much, Olena. Roman, passing ball to you. I know that your company is moving and developing like two directions. One is preparing some projects in Ukraine. Another one is Central Eastern Europe direction. Can you share with us what is actually the background of this strategy? What is the vision? How this rebuilding process? How it will look like when the end over?
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, it's actually, we have started some movements, and not just because we're doing business only in commercial real estate. The company Smart Urban is a part of Smart Holding, and we see like a lot of changes in the, let's say, production, agriculture, steel production, natural gas, etc. So it's quite unique an opportunity for me, because I see, let's say, full-scale picture how the things are changing, and that is why we also would like to understand what's happening in Europe, and that's why I spent like a lot of time in Europe for the last, let's say, half a year, and we even changed a bit the attitude and our strategy at the company, because before the war it was the company who was focused on the, let's say, network of the shopping center, some business center, hotel in the main square, and one of the main square of the city, and this is it. For the moment, our strategy is to compete in all of the directions. We clearly understand two dramatic changes in the resi for rent and resi for sale business in Ukraine, because when we will win the war, we just will need to get people back. And I'm not talking about the people who is in the Europe or somewhere else. I'm talking about the people that just temporarily moved to the central or east part of the country. And that is why the residential market is going to be like the first boost. Because, I mean, to restore the cities, you need to people get in. I mean, you don't need to build for logistics or shopping center if there is no people. The people will need to have some work. Yes, and that is why the residential must be built as a first priority after infrastructure, of course, roads, etc., power infrastructure, and such kind of things. And here is the biggest issue, but again, the big issue always have a solutions. The big issue is that the people will get back to the original regions, like step by step. First, they will get back as close to the initial locations in the big cities. That is why, for example, Zaporizhia, Dnipro, Kharkiv, Poltava, probably even Nikolaev will have a huge boost. From other point of view, they will not have fun to buy the new residential. That is why we think that one of the, let's say, interesting market is going to be residential for rent. When the company is built like a residential block and really ready for rented. I mean, it's done completely with refurbished, with the technique and everything. That is the first, like, essential market. Another one, we have like damaged, completely destroyed one of the shopping center in the Kremenchuk by the Russian missile in the June last year. And it was like a small one, like 11,000 square meters. And for the moment, we are planning to do like 25,000 scheme, completely branded new, ECG, BREEAM standard, etc., etc. And for the moment, I mean, like, this project will happen within the next, let's say, 2 years. And for the moment, it's leased by 90% of the square meters of the GLA, because there's a huge demand of the retailers to be there in such kind of regions, because there's nothing there. And keeping working with the potential tenants, we have identified approximately, I don't know, 10, 15 such kind of cities. They are quite regional, like Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, but also like cities with 300,000-400,000 inhabitants that ready to go there. Because again, that's a huge market, that nothing over there. The next one, and the huge market, it's combination of industrial and logistics, because we all understand that with the next, I don't know, like at least 10 years, the Ukraine is going to be the biggest construction land plot in the world, probably. On top of this, a lot of logistics that connects Asia and Europe is going to be changed. And the Black Sea and the ports, it's going to be used like a first connection point, and the west part of the country is going to be the next connection point. So that is the two regions that will be hugely loaded by the demand from the industrial, logistics company, etc. So that is why we're doing some certain steps in the directions as well, because we have like a huge assets such as Nikolaev port, for example, is like completely old, needs to be redone in the proper industrial park. It has 5 piers for the ships, like, I don't know, I believe probably 15,000 tons, sorry, but it's going to be developed. It's going to be created some huge industrial things at that border, because it's like direct access to the Black Sea, because increasing the logistics network will load them. And for example, Odessa will not be able to serve it. I mean, just going to be overloaded. usually it's going to be overloaded. So there should be a couple of more. And we think that such kind of things that a dry port also will be on the high demand at the border of Ukraine at the moment. So that is, let's say, like initial what we think at the moment, how the situation is going to be developed. Yeah, as a movement of the population, we believe that a lot of people that even in Europe now will get back. Because like, you know, like even such kind of things that we hear right now from the Europe, it's inflation. Oh my God, it's like 5% inflation. Oh, huge. Wow. If compared to what happened in Ukraine, it's like, okay, guys, we know how to manage this. And actually it's going to be, we believe that it's going to be the biggest drivers for, yeah, obviously the huge construction company from the Europe will have something to do here. Why we go to Europe? Because first of all, we believe that we will be acting like a business platform for the real estate companies in Ukraine. Because, for example, we have like a potential multi-use complex next to the stadium, which is going to be like 80,000 GLA square meters. And we strongly believe that we need to realize it with, let's say, 2 or 3 partners in the combination, probably with some bank financing, etc. But this is like a bit next steps. For the moment, we already get agreement with the Woods Baggett company. We're doing the master planning. It's going to be done within 3 months. And in that period of time, second part of the year, we will be acting really a lot at the Europe to find a partner. What I see at the moment, yeah, we looking for some assets in the Europe, but one of the main demands for such kind of a partnership that, as we just discussed, the company should be focused to go to Ukraine. And for the moment, we like consider these steps as kind of building relationship, like shaking hands, to know people, to understand like what we do, how we do, and this steps, to our opinion, will ease up to get investment funds in the country after the win. And that is one of our main, let's say, idea and goals.
Thank you very much, Roman. Quite a clear, actually, vision and explanation on what you are doing, and it's fascinating, and good luck in that. And the question now to Sergei, because we just touched the topic of industrial parks, and I know that in this perspective, you are acting quite a lot. But the thing is about the question, we are smoothly moving from investment to changing the climate of development. What is now changing in your approach and in business environment, in those partnerships which you are already in? What actually main ideas and preparation of Ukrainian companies to upcoming investment flow and rebuilding flow?
So we have been operating in the market as an engineering company for 11 years already, in commercial and in industrial development. And we see that as for now, commercial clients have ceased or drastically reduced their activities and stepped out from the field of ordering some development projects, design and construction contracts, and so on. So as for now, they are having 2 focuses. The first one is operational effectiveness, because the first stage of securing assets and personnel has been achieved with success for many of the companies, and now they are doing operational effectiveness tasks. It concerns some internal operational audits for maintenance, facility management, and so on. And the second one is energy audits. So in regard of two risks of raising or increasing prices for energy resources and increasing risks of impact from some military actions on infrastructure, many companies have decided to switch to looking for alternative energy resources or look to any options of improving energy performance of their facilities. So as for now, we have faced a series of requests for energy audits. The second focus is checking opportunities for own or foreign future investments. So the companies have started to assess and to look for future opportunities to invest. It is what Roland has been telling about. Many companies have started to look for any options to assess for future projects. As for the industrial development, so we have a big dynamics in relocation statistics. Around 800 enterprises have been relocated within half a year in Ukraine, from east of Ukraine to west of Ukraine, or from center of Ukraine to the west of Ukraine. That is why industrial parks as one of the best formats for quick industrial renovation. They start to be developed in the west of Ukraine mostly. So as for now, we are operating with the United Nations initiative for industrial parks, and we have been studying thoroughly this sphere and have chosen several industrial parks for transforming them to eco-industrial parks. And this initiative is supported by the Swiss government and by the United Nations. And it is a matter of technical assistance for transforming those industrial parks to the next level of development. And the as for plants, factories, terminals, ports, and so on, opportunities for development are being assessed, and in very rare cases are on pre-design stage. Few of them are in real development in construction phase or in design phase. The third thesis I would like to speak about is about recovery. So we have been in various discussions about how recovery should start and how should it be conducted, and we have discussed several times that recovery should be purpose-based. So the priority number one is business or industrial purpose. So if the territory, if the zone of recovery is needing some business to be developed, some industry to be developed, then residential facilities should be built. If we do not have any background, any ground for residential development as, for example, business or industrial spheres, then it is very hard to develop consistent and sustainable residential projects. So, and the last but not the least, I would like to show up is compliance. Many companies and many projects right now are getting on the track of achieving compliance with future requirements for investments. It means that feasibility studies, assessments, and totally repacked investment opportunities should be developed for the future readiness for investments and compliance with requirements of international funds, organizations, and institutions. As for now, we see very few projects in Ukraine ready for being compliant with high requirements for investments from the international funds. So as for now, we are on the track of developing feasibility studies and assessments for such investments. And this should be priority for any big project which is striving to be financed by international financing.
Thank you, thank you. Judging by faces, you know, this compliance topic is quite crucial, and most of participants just confirmed that, yeah, it's exactly the case when Ukrainian company might be ready better from compliance check point of view. And but also one thing which I hear quite frequently about problems of investing into Ukrainian projects is also about land acquisition and the property rights. And the topic which I would like to turn to Igor, because Igor is Ukrainian entrepreneur who just checking out some kind of number of residential projects and residential lands to be acquired in new projects to build up. And Igor, please tell us what actually are the rules and how do you, actually your experience, and if something really changed and now in the regulations and land acquisition.
Sergei, thank you for introduction. First of all, I want to say thank you, and thank you participants and other European investors for possibility to turn to investors in such hard times for our country. As we know, hard times creates strong people, and also hard times create big opportunities for investments. I believe that Ukraine will become a big European investment harbor in the next few years. About your question, in our country, you can build only on land plots that lease to you or on which is located your real estate, what you have purchased that was built earlier. And it means some kind of reconstruction of this real estate. The second path, also you can build on undeveloped, empty land plots that have been purchased from the city council and privately owned by you. Most of land plots in Ukrainian cities are leased, but not privately owned. That's why construction on empty land plots, on undeveloped land plots is possible only after the city holds an auction for this land plot. In the case of Kiev, there is a great potential for development in industrial areas in the city center. These are former plants and former factories that doesn't being used now. But up to date, Kiev doesn't have a modern and actual master plan for the whole city. This is a problem because these industrial zones in that master plan is still industrial, not residential. It wasn't changed to residential, public, or commercial zones. This is a bad case. The good case is that this problem can be solved by developing or designing a smaller urban plan that can change that zones. It can take from 1 to 3 years, and it should be approved by local deputies. But it can take such time from 1 to 3 years. It's a problem. But today we have breakthrough solutions. For example, state or a government application, well-known application DIA. I think you heard about this application, and you can obtain a building permit online through the developer's electronic cabinet, not touching the official persons and without corruption at all.
Sounds a bit like fantastic, but I want to really know.
But it works in Ukraine last year.
Yeah, Roman, please jump in.
Yeah, I just would like to add that it's, I mean, like a huge changes in the regions of the country, because I mean, there is one of the main driver that the big changes in the taxation. For the moment, there is a lot of money stays in the region. And that is why all like local government, I mean, no, not government, city authorities are really very welcome to the new business, because they understood that it's going to boost their local budgets as well. And on top of the DIA implementation, and I mean, yesterday it was completely fantastic news. The creator of the DIA, Fedorik, will get a promotion. He's now vice president for the digitalization and education of the country, and it's going to be like the next huge step on digitalize everything. And as soon as you're not touching any, let's say, like a physical authorities, is one of the biggest impact to speed up any project.
Great one, thank you very much, Daniel. The question to you: what do you think about really? What are the main problems actually for Western investors to come into Ukraine? What would you like, from your perspective, what should be now actions to be done to make it more smoother? And what do you think about it?
Actually, some of the problems I mentioned at the beginning, which would be great even to repeat it now, but let's start from that this is not just the problems only for the Western investor, also for Polish, unless you treat us as Western investors. But anyway,
on the west from Ukraine.
Okay, so in general, we have to divide it. But the Polish investors, many of them, they are really thinking about what will be the next steps when the war will be over. And that would be great to enter and to help with rebuilding, and also to straight on to make money. And then here comes some list of the problems they have. So one of the problem, and those problems are actually on the same list from Germany, UK investors, for example. And I mentioned about, let's say, transparency in general, and the city halls and with the public officers in general, in acquisition of land, and getting proper documentation. Also, another problem which could be resolved and must be resolved is to avoid buying the plots which are later on you are realizing they are not existing, or this is the real case from 5 years ago. And also, in general, to have a clear situation, the clear registration database for all plots, who is the owner, how you can make the double checking, to have a support of the officials and the proper legal companies. This is very, very crucial and simple, we can think, but really this must be done. This is the really first step. Another thing is, I think Igor mentioned something about that most of the land is leased. You mean this is the perpetual usufruct, yes, issue like we had in Poland. Right now we don't have it. We have just freehold, but we have different type of, let's say, ownership. One is a freehold, the other one is perpetual usufruct, which means that you have a kind of lease from the government, from the treasury for 99 years. And then you can extend it. So we are going through the process now to changing it. So you can sign a contract with the government or the local authorities to exchange the perpetual usufruct to freehold, and then you simply pay a very similar amount for the next X years, but still you are the owner, no like leasing or something like that. So definitely there are such a differences. I remember like today, like 20 years ago, we should explain to German investors, I apologize my French, but what the hell is perpetual usufruct? Nobody, it was even hard to explain. So it's a lease or whatever, it's kind of lease, but it's not lease, it's not a freehold, it's not ownership, and so on. So definitely this type of things should be clarified, should be clear, and there should be even preferably a place which we definitely we will provide as a Polish-Ukrainian real estate hub. That's one of the reasons why we decided to open something like this as a platform for investors for both Poland and Ukraine to understand the rules, legal, political even, but definitely the business, how the investment process look like, and what kind of the documentation and what kind of advisory you are looking for in the both countries, because this is like crossing, as we see some UK companies which are willing to do business in Ukraine after war. They are thinking first to do something again in Poland, even if they've not been doing this before. Like we have one of the partners thinking about creating 1, 2, maybe 3 factories to for housing, to build to prepare housing. So probably we'll advise them to make a prefabric and to make a construction sites on the western part of the Ukraine, and then the houses will be delivered in the most crucial regions and most destroyed regions. And this is like a social, not a business, it's a social project, by the way. So these are, I think, issues which are from one hand are blocking, but from the other hand, even this conversation today, even to me, when we are working, Sergii, from the long time to understand both markets and how we can connect it to how many questions, how many issues should be resolved, and the information should be provided. You ask me what to do. There should be, I would say, ideas like we are having now to do this hub, and this hub should start definitely with the creating a knowledge hub and providing this as wide as possible to cooperate with the Polish-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, which I already do, to cooperate with the several organizations connected to the both governments, Polish and Ukrainian, and speaking, and they are working and dealing with the foreign investments. So there should be several places where you can learn what was in the past, how it is during the war, and what is Ukrainian business and government is doing, and is planning to do in terms of providing security of the business and acquisitions and investment process. And then there will be another question about the exit for commercial, which Roman is probably aware more than anyone else from us. Once you build the office building or a retail park or warehousing, then you really, if you have not strategy to keep it, then you have to sell to somebody. And then here comes the question: what will be the capitalization rate, and how quickly you can sell it, if it's profitable or not, and the security issues, which are coming back to the beginning of my little maybe too long speech. So I will stop here.
Asher, over to you now. You are experienced investor in Ukraine. What are the main problems and issues from your perspective? What should be done as a priority?
From our point of view, as a development bank, when we finance development projects, our mandate allows us to cover only part of the gross development budget, and usually we need to crowd in commercial banks. Pre-war, the participation of local banks in the real estate sector was quite limited, so it was hard to find co-financing bank, and in today's environment, I guess it's even more restricted. So we would really want to see reactivation of the local banking sector in financing real estate, specifically in finance, also construction and development, or providing construction loans. Secondly, we see there is a lot of potential in rebuilding the destroyed residential stock, and we would like to engage in that field. We are actually looking at policy work. We are doing policy work internally that will allow us to engage or maybe even lead reconstruction of residential stock. But for that, we need to create a consumer market that requires an active mortgage sector that also pre-war wasn't developed and needs to be established. Those are the two pillars, I think, that would really help to drive the sector forward.
Thank you. And one of the key news, in my opinion, at least it sounds like that, in Q1 of 2023, and actually in the end of also 2022, it was about guarantees for ensuring investments and private investments into Ukraine from war risks, and from also it was touching about equipment purchase. I've heard about it like a theory, but actually, do you have an experience, or maybe do you have a knowledge about such tools already in place?
No, and just from the EBRD point of view, we in this case act as a commercial bank, and we have a bilateral donor funding that we deploy in our financing.
Okay.
But actually, this product of insurance for business activities, it's a very useful one. We don't have it at our disposal at this stage. I think it's something that should be developed by the market.
Okay, Olena, yeah, please sit.
Yes, I just wanted to add on that because during the wartime, during the invasion time, it has been discussed also the involvement of MIGA for the public sector, to providing the insurance for the projects. And it has been discussed like half a year ago that it should be increased further on to the private projects as well. And what we know from our clients or from other companies operating in Ukraine already, they are seeking for some guarantees from their countries of origin. And some of the countries do provide such instruments like risk coverage for example, Germany, up to 15 years, what you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation. It covers up to 15 years for the interest rate below 8 or 9% annually. You can terminate it anytime, and it's really not a rocket science to apply for it. You just need to have a German connection to that kind of guarantee, and to provide a good homework done for the project to get an approval on that. And we don't have that kind of instrument on the level of the European Union or any other regional institutions or any funds that may be created in the future. But the discussions are over the table, because anyone who would like to come to Ukraine would like to have a securities and would like to have a guarantees, not only from the Ukrainian government, but also in addition on top of that. And it's everything about the information, because you don't get this kind of information, and you need to know it's on the national level. And here we are talking about the compliance from the beginning, because it's per se also like representing the regional European law firm. We are talking per se about the compliance of our clients and compliance for the projects and so on, what Sergei mentioned about the Ukrainian companies. And
thank you, Olena. Roman, you wanted also to contribute, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also heard that, for example, Polish government already considering it, but I believe such kind of, let's say, fast and huge steps, it's going to be done closer to our win. We are not saying closer to the end of the war, we're saying closer to our win. And it's actually, for the moment, we as a country creating right now the biggest insurance company, and we'll be finishing after the win. It's Ukrainian army.
Okay.
That's the biggest insurance company for the investment in Ukraine.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm not joking because I mean,
I understand it.
yeah, it's half of the joke, of course. Yes, but at the same time, we heard a lot that, I mean, biggest German tank production plant is going to build here. The biggest, Sergei, как сказать беспилотник?
Drone.
Drones.
Yeah, drones, the biggest
As a drone
drone
pilot, I said
and-
UAV.
Yeah, Bayraktar is going to be built here, and that is the biggest insurance.
Okay, one more topic. Yes, I would like to touch today because we are actually coming close to the timing of the and the topic is huge. Actually, we can I think talk for an hours. But topic about also sustainability and ESG because the Europe, Poland, Germany, whole Europe is become year by year tougher and tougher about ESG standards, about regulations, and about also consequences of not to be compliant with that standards and regulations. And in this respect, in this, those projects which were today discussed, where maybe EBRD is investing in, maybe about also to hear from Roland, what kind of is those all of these aspects you mentioned about investments. How do you think this ESG topic to be covered both in Europe and in Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, we are a technology company, as the name suggests, green towers in the green business for a kind of a decade. And it was a kind of a joke before Greta Thunberg in 2019, but it's picking up pace rapidly up to the point that already as in the standard residential market, if you want a mortgage or you want to quite simply as a private person want to buy a little flat, the bank would question you handing out a loan if the energy rating of your residential building is bad. And of course, with all due respect of a high level of urgency in Ukraine due to the war, it's a human trait to forget the things which are not so urgent, but nonetheless very important. And in Europe, we have a 500 billion euro package, if I get the number right. There's quite a lot of money involved in the Green Deal, and it's really the energy inefficient building. I would say I'm pretty sure from the pictures and videos, 90% of the Ukrainian building stock, kind of 80-90% would be absolutely energy inefficient. They're on the way to become stranded assets. So this is not the running gag of the day anymore, as it was before. Yeah, talk a bit of green and delegate it to the marketing department, and have a nice green brochure. This is going down to bottom line results, especially as far as energy consumption per square meter and year is concerned, but it's also will increasingly affect new builds. However, the greatest challenge is the existing building stock, and to renovate the existing building stock efficiently on a low budget. Yeah, and I don't want to go too lengthy in technological aspects, but say for German numbers, if you do a complete renovation, you have the Mercedes, make a Mercedes out of your old Lada, which you own in your as a house. In this picture, it costs you kind of €1,000 per square meter and more. Nobody has this money, let alone all the house owners are interested to go in all these troubles. And there are methods, say on a 1/10 of the cost on a do-it-yourself basis, which has a far higher return on investment. it has a return on investment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. There are good technologies available by Passive House Institute and others. Maybe we can share the link, but just be aware that the money for complete good renovation in Germany is not available. I doubt it will be the 100% green ideal world in Ukraine will be available. So my pledge would be try to get a good compromise for a small budget with a very short return on investment. This is something I find very feasible for future Ukraine in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. If Roman, yeah.
I would like to add, I mean, all of the partners that we are in contact, I mean, acting in the European market, doing the project ECG, BRIAM, etc. So there's no sense for me, for example, to plan anything with different standards in Ukraine. So, and I mean, of course, our, like, for example, multi-use project in the downtown of the Kiev, I mean, is going to be like a project of a future of Ukraine, right? And I cannot, I mean, allow myself to build it based on the old standards. We, even for the moment, it's like a very, very early stages of the project. We already considering where is the maximum sun, just to get angle of the maximum sun and maximum radiation of the sun for the building. And again, as I said, there is no secret for international partner that I would like to get into the project. And of course, we will need to speak to EBRD, knock, knock, knock. Yeah, and we like know all of the standards and like we know all of the compliance, etc. So that is why, I mean, it's the time when you are preparing your company to build the future. I mean, that's exactly the case. And based on the Ukraine different landscape, I mean, it's quite different. For example, country, even for example, solar panels, it's going to be completely different production if you put them in the, for example, Ivano-Frankivsk region or in Odessa, because in Odessa it's like, I believe 50 plus more days compared to best part of the country of the clear sun. The radiation is quite high, which is one of the essential tools in the production of the solar panels. And that is why it is also, but from the other point of view, it's much more wind in the west part of the country because of the mountains. There is a lot of wind happening over there. And all of the wind production plants are also acceptable. At the same time, you cannot, for example, not to do it in the south part of the country because it's a combination of the land and the sea, which is also generates you extra wind. And yeah, I mean, there is I completely agree with Roland because it's like no sense, for example, to try to do from old Lada the Mercedes, but at least for the same amount of money you can do from the Lada at least, I don't know, Opel, and next to this build completely new one, BMW, Mercedes or whatever.
Okay, thank you very much. Igor, please contribute.
I want to add a few words about Ukrainian residential real estate market. I think investors maybe doesn't know about these possibilities. Ukrainian real estate residential market has a very huge potential because nowadays I think in Western Europe, only in Ukraine you can invest $1 million to the land plot or to the site, and you can get $5 or $7 million profit in 3 years. It is impossible in Europe. It's impossible in other projects in Europe. So Ukrainian real estate residential market has a huge potential. We founded our company in 2021. And we have in our portfolio 3 residential projects in different segments. And to choose these 3 plots or 3 sites, we audited 65 land plots and sites. Among them was propositions and offers to purchase the land plot with lease, or to purchase the land plot with lease and construction conclusion to starting construction works. Or other offers was to purchase industrial building without any law documents for the land plot and any urban documents for for changing industrial zone to residential industrial zone. So it's a long way. From the top of our practice, we recommend foreign investor to get some memorandums with local government about that land plots that they are interested in, because local government should to prepare this territory with that urban plans and construction conclusions, because investors should to come in this project very fast and should to start construction works as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Igor. I think it's just exactly the point which some time ago Daniel mentioned about purchasing the plot which doesn't exist or something like that, like a kind of risk.
One more word. It was answered to Daniel. The Ukrainian real estate market or real estate model of rules is almost in common, the similar as Poland real estate market and rules. So I think, and laws. So I think it's very easy Poland investors to come to Ukrainian market. Thank you.
The crucial is just the access to the data with regards to the ownership of the plot, the type of the investments you can do, master planning information, and so on. This is crucial to have the digital database with the easy access to get this basic knowledge about the current situation of the plot in terms of the urban, technical, legal situation.
So that's application DIA, and the Ukrainian public cadastral map is can help you with this.
Okay, I see also Asher and Sergei. Asher, I invite you first. Please, what you would like to add to the discussion?
It's just a very short comment. As an EBRD, we have a green economy transition policy, which basically requires us to at least for at least 50% of our financing to be green. In the real estate team, 100% of our transactions are invested, or very close to 100% are invested in green buildings, i.e. energy efficient, advanced structures that are in most cases also certified to BREEAM very good level at least. We believe those buildings are easier to finance, are cheaper for the occupier to operate, and are also easier to sell. And in a way, philosophically, we look at it as the green investment you do once, but the brown discount you have is forever. So as an institution, we only invest in green buildings.
Thank you. Sergei, turning to you.
Yeah, thank you. I should say that following this discussion and the topics arisen, I think that it is very needed to find the implementation platforms and implementation partners in Ukraine for international funds, international players, because despite the common interest of recovery, of getting some low risk profits and so on and so forth, there is still a difference in approaches, in local standards, in local specifics, and so on. So I think that such events like we are participating today in are very important to find such implementation partners on field, here in Ukraine.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, you have also raised the hands, or it's from the past one?
Yeah, if I may, just shortly, because the question was about ESG in general. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy to hear what you guys are saying, the guys from Ukraine, because for Roland, Germany is obvious and normal. For Poland, we are part of European Union, and there are some kind of the not even demands, but you have to follow the rules and regulations which are provided by EU, and those regulations are getting very strong and more stronger for the next years. So reporting for CO2 production by every single building in real estate, commercial is on the place. So since 2025, the even regulations will be stronger, more stronger. So what we observe now, this is very good comment from Roman, by the way, that he said that I don't have any other idea, which is smart related to your name of the company, which is now I understand everything. This is very smart to plan it that way, because the other way you can do it later, of course, but that will cost you double or triple. Like there are different very simple things like sensors to the buildings, which are measuring everything. And based on that, you make the reporting platform for how much power you are spending. Based on that, you are preparing the solution, how much money, how much you can reduce it. So, and this is very crucial, and we in Poland, all of us, every single entrepreneur, owner of the building, and so the manufacturers, all of them, they are right now doing things or planning. The thing is also that this is not on the level I would expect that they should do it. Some people say, hey, okay, come on, we will make it later. This is okay. This is easy. Problem is that later that will be more expensive, for sure. So far you can do some good things following on the CO2 reduction for the lower OPEX and CAPEX actually in the same time, which definitely will be different situation in the year or two when the demand will be higher. Less service providers will be for that also issue, and less materials also, including considering the war in Ukraine will be already over. So there will be actually even following on the question on chat, that there will be less materials, and which will mean that will be more expensive at the same time. There are several solutions. Even we are involved in 2 different solutions, like the sensors, providing 1,500 different sensors to the different type of buildings and reducing CO2 that way. Also, we cooperate with the German manufacturer, which is having an amazing material right now, the new technology, which is securing against of the fire and against of cold and so on. And this is a really reduction of the up to 30% of losing energy from the building comparing to that technologies you have now. So this is very good direction that Ukrainian investors are preparing themselves for that, if they will have a big part of European in the future, which hopefully will happen as soon as possible.
Thank you, Igor.
About instruments, as I said, we before we choose 3 land plots for residential development, we audited 65 other land plots and sites. After that, we have formed a long list that we constantly monitor, constantly update for ourselves, add their new sites, track the change of ownership, and check up the financial health of that project for ourselves. But it's not a big secret, and we can share with interested participants this long list.
Thank you. Interesting. Okay. Are there any? Because I see also Igor and Sergei have still raised hands. Is it after your previous speech, or you want to add something? No,
just a habit.
Just a habit. Okay. Thank you very much. This was really insightful discussion. Really happy to be a part of it. And I don't know if I see that in chat you already answered all the questions that were actually asked. So yeah, it's I think there are no open questions, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are from Ukraine. You remember, we're doing things before they exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just passing then the floor to Chena to for example, for the closing word.
Yeah, thank you all for the very interesting panel. I think we'll definitely have a lot more to discuss in the future, and we're more than happy to offer our platforms for these discussions and debates also in our real life events in this year. We'll definitely have a dedicated Rebuilding Ukraine panel at our Warsaw event, and also in Vienna and London later this year. Thank you all again for joining us, and hopefully next time we will also have some some better news about what's going on the war as well, and then hopefully we'll have a more realistic approach to rebuilding as it will get closer to the end of the war. So thank you, Sergii, for moderating, and for all of you guys to join, and hope to see you in person as well soon. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for organizing and keep supporting us and keeping having attention on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.